Hi, I'm Megan Skidmore, and this is the Beyond the Shadow of Doubt. I'm a woman, daughter, sister, spouse, mother, life coach, and person of faith on a mission to normalize asking questions and allowing doubts, not only in a faith journey, but in all aspects of life. Join me in bringing this traditionally taboo topic out of the shadows of shame and into the light. I'm a firm believer that we normalize through more talking and engaging in discussion. More talking peels back, exposes, and erases the layers of shame associated with questions and doubts. When we're more authentic about our journey, we are more powerful because shame has no power in the face of authenticity. I'm currently hosting a podcast giveaway. To enter, simply leave a review and a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and upload a screenshot to my Google Doc. Share this giveaway with a friend, and if your friend's name is drawn, you both win a $100 gift card. The link to enter, including to the Google Doc, is in the show notes or in the bio of my Instagram profile. Today, author Emily Taylor joins me on the podcast. Taken from her website, Emily shares, quote, "Throughout my childhood, I lived through extensive trauma-inducing experiences. Unable to process those events at a young age, I carefully tucked them away. I made sure nobody could ever see them. I even hid them and their impact from myself, believing I was fine. It wasn't until much later that those experiences and associated feelings bubbled up to the surface. That was when I began the long journey of healing from my childhood trauma. Slowly, with work and the mental tools I was learning, that hollowness inside me was replaced with godly confidence." End quote. The experiences Emily shares are directly related to her recently published workbook, Unlocking Bright Minds, available both on her website, unlockingbrightminds.org, or Amazon. Raised LDS, Emily lives in the Dallas area with her husband and 2 sons. Welcome to part 1 of our interview, episode 49. Before beginning, I wanted to include a content warning. In this episode, there are discussions of child sexual abuse and LDS disciplinary counsel and subsequent trauma as related to both. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome, everybody, to the Beyond the Shadow of Doubt podcast. I'm Megan Skidmore, your host. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm excited for you to be here and for you to meet my guest today, Emily Taylor. Emily, our connection goes back a little ways when you first moved into the ward and into our faith congregation. I don't know, over 10 years ago. It's been a while.
Yep.
And we were first paired as what was then called Visit Teaching Companions and is now called in our faith ministering. But I remember from early on that we had similar interests in areas such as mental health, topics along those lines. And I've always appreciated that about our friendship. So I invited Emily to come on today, and I'm so grateful that she agreed. Emily has a very unique and I don't know if beautiful is the right word.
You can call it beautiful. I think it's
okay. A beautiful
what came about is beautiful.
Yes, a beautiful faith journey. We'll call it that and leave it at that. And Emily has been a significant part of my faith journey as a parent of an LGBTQ plus child, as she was the president of the youth group that my kiddo was in for a while. And I never felt judged. I always felt listened to and seen. And so I appreciate that very much. I feel like this is coming for full circle to have you here today. So with that, I'm going to give you the opportunity, Emily, to share your background, your origin story, anything that you would like to share that you feel is needful, and then dive right into your faith journey.
Okay. So a little bit about me first. I am one of 7 kids. I'm number 6 of 7. I have a twin sister that's number 5 of 7. So I grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota, and in a park, which is significant for me because it played a huge role in kind of my childhood and my identity. So I feel like that park, that beautiful park, is named Como Park, and I feel like it's worth mentioning. And when I was 17, I moved to Orem, Utah. where I graduated as an Orem Tiger. And then I went to BYU, where I met my husband, and we now live in the Dallas area with our two teenage boys. And yeah, I taught fitness classes for a long time. That was kind of my thing. As when my kids were little, it was kind of what I did for me, and I loved it. I quit that when I was called to be a women's president, not because I was called to be a women's president. That's just kind of the way the timing of it worked out.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that's a little bit about me. And
And it was good timing because it was right before the pandemic hit. So,
yeah, yep, that is true.
yeah,
So that worked out. It wasn't easy, but it was definitely the right thing to do at the time. So um,
amazing.
yeah. So from here, I guess I can just go into my faith
Yeah.
journey.
So, if this is your first time listening, one of the reasons I started this podcast was my goal is to normalize the questions and the doubts, the concerns, the things that come up as part of a faith journey, that they are normal, that it doesn't mean anything has gone wrong, or that it doesn't mean that you are less of a believer or less dedicated or any of those things. My goal is to normalize that there are as many faith journeys as there are human beings
Okay.
on this earth. And so I feel very blessed that you are willing to come and share
My
about
faith journey.
yours.
Okay.
Yes,
Um,
and contribute to this normalizing that the more I truly believe, the more we talk about these things, the more conversations that we have, then the shame gets peeled back.
right. Okay. So I'll just get started then talking about
Yeah.
my faith journey slash faith crisis, which was a faith crisis before that was even a term, right? Like faith crisis, I feel
Yeah.
like it's kind of like a very popular term right now.
Very common. Yes.
Yes, but I will say when I first heard it, I was like, well, that is accurate. I mean, that is what it felt like to me. So I'll just go into how it started, my faith crisis, which I now call my faith journey.
Mhm.
Um, so as a little girl, I was sexually abused, and that happened for 5 years of my childhood. That went on, and at a certain point, I remember actually in second grade, I remember thinking, I can't do this. I can't do this. This hurts so bad. And this was a conscious thought as a second grader, thinking, this hurts so bad. I can't live with this anymore. And so I just decided to stop feeling. And I did. And I very successfully cut off any emotion whatsoever, any negative emotion. And Brene Brown says you can't cut off the negative without cutting off the positive. So when you numb yourself to emotion, you are numbing yourself. And I made a conscious choice to do that in second grade. So when my parents found out, I was almost in the sixth grade when my parents found out. And so at that point, it obviously came to a stop. But I remember my mom sobbing and hugging me and saying, I'm so sorry, we're going to get you the help. And I remember thinking very clearly, I don't need help. I am so okay. Like I thought her response was weird because I thought I was okay. So to my parents' credit, they did try to get me the help I needed, and I refused. I wasn't willing. I believed to my core that I was okay. And so I wasn't, obviously. So it wasn't until and at a certain point, the therapist that piss plural finally told my parents, listen, she's not ready to deal with this. You're causing her more trauma. At some point in her life, she will be
Mhm.
ready to deal with this. And when she is, it probably won't be pretty, but she'll need your love and support, and be there for her then. Um, and I mean, they were spot on accurate because you can't have something like that happen to you without dealing with it at some point in your life, or it's going to
Yeah.
deal with you. I mean,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
really the truth of it. So it wasn't until I was married and had two children, the two boys we have now, they were small, much, really little. When sure enough, it's not like I made a conscious decision in my head, like, do you know what? It's time for me to deal with this abuse that happened as a child. That would have been wonderful if that was the way it played out, but it didn't. Um, no, I mean, you can look at the statistics for adults who were abused as children and never got help, and it's not pretty. It looks like addiction and promiscuity and not being able to have a healthy marriage and all the things. And I can say that I was not an exception to those statistics. So obviously, when you're living that type of lifestyle, it doesn't go hand in hand with the teachings of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So, um, so there came a point that I talk about this very nonchalantly, but it wasn't an easy time in life because it's not who I am in my heart of hearts. That's not the person I am. And I didn't want to be living this way. I had two separate lives. I had my life with my family, and I had this lie that I was living on the side where all the negative things were happening. And so I didn't want to be that person. And you would think healthy individuals think, well, then just don't, like, just stop. Unhealthy individuals will understand me 100% when I say, I was doing something I didn't want to do, but I didn't know how to stop doing it. That is an honest to goodness problem for people who are living with trauma. And so I was in that situation where I was doing something and living a lie, a life I didn't want to be living, but I didn't know how to end it. I didn't know how to stop it, but I didn't want to do it. And I remember pleading with God to take me. It was like, God, please take me. I don't want to do this anymore. And as much as I don't want to do it, I can't make it stop. I can't. And so I just lived with this, like, I'm obviously a very terrible person. I remember praying to get hit by a semi truck because I thought that was the fast, like, well, that'll be fast. And so that was kind of the reality I was living in. And I remember one specific day. So here I am thinking I'm a terrible person, right? And when you think you're a terrible person, there's no room for growth. You can't change that. You just are a terrible person. And so I remember being in this situation one day with this group of people and doing things I didn't want to be doing. And I remember looking around and thinking very clearly in my mind, tying it back to my abuse as a child and thinking, I'm doing this because of what happened. Like, so this means I'm not bad. I'm not terrible. And it was the first glimmer of hope that I had in that whole situation. And so it was like, well, hold on. If I'm not a terrible person and this stems back to my abuse, maybe, just maybe, if I get help with the abuse, I don't have to do this anymore and I don't have to live this way anymore. And so there was hope in that, like, so much hope. And that hope gave me enough courage to go home and tell my husband and my bishop what I was doing so that I could get the help I needed. And that was a wonderful thing. Like, that was a great place. And I will say over and over that having my bishop to go to was a wonderful thing for me because I was a very lost soul and I didn't know who to turn to. And I needed anyone who I could go to and say, I'm so lost and I'm so broken and I need more help than I even know how to put into words. And so I will forever be grateful for that person that I had to go to. So I did that, and that started out really as a really beautiful journey. He was able to help me. He was able to get me in touch with therapists that could help me. So at this point, I was working with two different people, my bishop and a therapist, and both of those paths were helping me, like really helping me. But sorry, Julie Hanks has said this before, and so have a lot of other therapists, that LDS bishops are not therapists and they shouldn't be giving services as such. And so there were things that happened along my course that were very hurtful, things he asked me to do and things he asked me to say that were actually caused additional trauma to me. And so I started, this is kind of where my question started, was like, well, hold on, this is so helpful. but this is also really hurtful, and trying to just balance like what's happening here. Is this good or is this not good? And in the midst of all that, we moved here to where we live now. So obviously I had a church disciplinary council, um and then it
Can
was
I
just
pause you just for a minute? You said obviously.
yes.
Um, was it just a given?
Well, I think yeah, because when you're living such a lie of a life and covering it up, that doesn't go hand in hand with the teachings of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so I said obviously because
Okay.
I know that within our church, they like to keep the people within their church in good standing. They want the people that say, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to represent something good. And the life I was living wasn't
Well, I
good.
guess I pause you just for a minute because I I suppose the question that comes up for me is, was the abuse taken into consideration,
Oh, it was.
before
Yes, it
before
definitely was.
any and all. Anyhow, go ahead.
Yes,
Keep
it
going.
was. So anyway, I had that. Yes, to answer your question, the abuse was taken into consideration. So somewhat, I would say somewhat. But so then we moved, and I'm in the middle of this year-long church disciplinary thing, and we moved, which meant I was starting with a new bishop. So my old bishop sat me down and he said, "Hey, listen, this is going to be hard because you and I have made so much progress and you're about to go with a new bishop. So I'm going to ask you," and I will forever be grateful for him for this. He said, "I'm going to ask you, Emily, do you want to go in and tell him everything? Or do you want me to do that so that you can just go in and pick up from where you left off so that you don't have to rehash everything we've already talked and discussed?" And I said, "I want you to do that. I don't want to rehash everything that I've done and worked through." So my old bishop told my new bishop everything. And so when I went into that meeting the first time with that bishop, I knew that he knew everything and we could just pick up where I left off with my old bishop. It was a wonderful thing and something I hope bishops can hear and do for people because it's helpful, not hurtful. And the helpful part was that he asked me first. He didn't just go tell that bishop. He asked me, "Do you want me to do this for you?" And I said yes. So I worked with that bishop for about 3 months. And here's where my faith journey really started to turn into a crisis. So it was in this time where I started realizing that they didn't take, I didn't feel like they had took my abuse into account as much as I felt like maybe they should have. And my new bishop even emphasized that. He told me point blank, "Had you been in my ward, you wouldn't, this year-long disciplinary action would not have happened. This is not okay for victims of sexual abuse. And what you need is healing and recovery, not to be cut off from the organization that you love." And so that was, it was really validating for him to say that, but it also got me thinking about like, well, what does this mean as far as church leadership goes? How it's very much, that means it's very much bishop roulette, right? Like in stake president roulette. Like, so if I had had this bishop, it would have been different. But what if I had had that bishop or that bishop or that bishop? Who knows? And so really is my fate really just in their hands? So that started a lot of questions for me. And at that point, I knew I still had 6 months left of this time. And I knew that the bishop, this is bishop number 2, I knew that rumors were talking that he was about to get released to be called as our new stake president. And so I'm meeting with him. We've got these rumors going on the side. And he told me point blank, "I'm going to reach out to the first presidency of the church and see if I can get permission for the next 6 months of this disciplinary timeframe to be cut off. This needs to be done. You need to be back in full fellowship." And I was very excited about that. I thought, oh my gosh, wow, he really does get me. Like, this is cool. He's gonna help me, because I was at a point where I couldn't take the sacrament. I couldn't speak in church. I couldn't say a
Mhm.
prayer. So it was like, just sit here and look pretty, Sister Taylor, beautiful. Just sit there, but don't talk. We don't want you to talk. We don't want you to participate. Oh my gosh, don't think about participating. And I remember my husband one time when I was going through this and having a really hard time, just crying to him. And he said, Emily, if you think about our oldest son, if we were to put him in timeout, he wouldn't throw a fit about it. Like, it just is part of what you have to go through. And I said, but Jaron, what if we put him in timeout for a year? How long before he'd run away? How long before we said, hey, stay in your room, don't talk, don't think about talking to us. We want you to be a part of this family.
And don't come to the table. Don't come and
Right?
eat
Don't
with
come
us
to
at the
the
table.
Yes, don't come and eat with us at the table, but we sure love you and we're sure happy you're in our family, but stay in your room and don't talk and don't join us ever. But like, just it, he would run away. Like, that doesn't make you feel welcome and part of a group. It makes you feel ostracized and shamed. And so I was really dealing with these feelings of shame, which I mean, I'm trying to overcome the shame of my childhood. And now I'm got new shame around this.
Mhm.
I'm being ostracized from the religion I know and love and grew up with. And so that was really hard. And then I've got these questions of like the bishop roulette, and the whole time, every time I went to church on Sunday, I'm looking at my bishop and I'm like, is this the week? Is this the week you're
Mhm.
going to tell me that I can now talk again and say prayers again and take the sacrament? This is going to be the week. And I went to church excited every week. This is going to be the week. And I'd look at him straight in the eye with hope in my eyes. And every week I'd go home disappointed. And every week it hurt just a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And then I showed up one week and the whole, like, I don't remember, there were lots of people there, lots of family that wasn't supposed to, visiting from out of town. And
Mhm.
my husband looked at me, he knew, he said, our bishop is about to be, they're going to switch out our bishops. And I remember thinking, there's no way he wouldn't do that to me. He promised me he was going to reach out to the first presidency. He told me that he wouldn't just leave me hanging. And they did. They replaced our bishop that Sunday. And it hurts so bad.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. It does. I mean, I'm sure
My
if you're
heart
just
hurts for
listening to
you.
this, you're like, well, it's not that big of a deal. But
Oh
this
no.
is months of me having my hope built up and thinking this is going to be the week he's going to tell me that basically I'm enough, right? That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
I was looking to my bishop to tell me, you're now good enough, Sister Taylor, that you can take the sacrament and pray again. And so when they swapped out bishops, I was crushed, because it was like, whoa, he forgot about me. Like, here I'm a human, I have a soul, and you promised me you were gonna come back and you gave me a hope. And it was gone. And I got up and I walked out of our building that day and I walked down, there's a park down the street, and I sat in that park and I just sobbed. And I remember thinking, I don't know that I can come back. They don't want me. They don't want me. Why should I want them? And not only that, but like, every time I come here, I feel not good enough. I feel worse about myself, not better. But at the same time, my relationship with my Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ were really growing. And so I was having these weird things happening where it's like, how on earth, I thought that my relationship with Jesus Christ and God were because of this church. Like, that's why, that's what I was raised in this church. I thought they were one and the same. I thought they were intertwined. This church is God. This church is Jesus Christ. But
Yeah.
now I'm in this situation where my relationship with God and Jesus Christ is stronger than it's ever been. And what I want to do is tell people about it. I want to share. I want to be able to make comments in Relief Society and Sunday school about how awesome Jesus is and how he can heal you from the inside out, because he did that for me. And these are things I want to be able to do because my relationship with them is beautiful. And I can now testify of that, but I can't, because this church organization is telling me I'm not good enough. And so it's like this thing that I always thought was intertwined, which was the gospel, which was the church, and Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ, for the first time in my life were separate. And so that was weird. And that was trippy for me because it was like, okay, so I can have this relationship with God and Jesus Christ and not be a part of this church. Clearly I can, because that was my reality at that point in time.
Yeah.
And so I remember crying in that park and thinking, I can't go back. And furthermore, I'm like maybe 2.5 or 3 months away from this year time frame being over. And now I have to start over. Like, you want me to rehash all of this with bishop number 3? Abso-freaking-lutely not. Like, my answer's no. It's just no. And not only that, but bishop number 2 didn't do the same thing that bishop number 1 did. He didn't sit down and say, I'm about to be released, and do you want me to fill in bishop number 3, or do you want to do that? So I had no idea if bishop number 3 knew anything about my situation. So I came home and I wrote up my letter of recommendation to have my name removed from the records of the church. And I drove over to bishop number 3, brand new bishop's house. And I was walking up to the door to hand him this letter. And I had the thought, what will this mean for my life? What's going to change if I give him this letter? And I thought, you know what, before I turn in this letter, I want to think about what's going to change if what's going to look different. So I went home and I took, really a couple weeks to think about this. And I can't emphasize enough how much I hurt inside at this point in time. Like, the hurt was, and the shame I felt around being a member of this church were real and dominating. And so I started thinking through what's going to change. Okay, I won't go to church anymore on Sundays. That will be different, but I can get used to a new normal. I won't go to the temple anymore, which actually that excited me because I don't love the temple. So that was like, yay, I wouldn't have to go to the temple anymore. And then, so I'm going through all these things, right? And then I get to the Book of Mormon, and I thought, well, and then I wouldn't read the Book of Mormon anymore. And that was my hang up right there. I thought, no, I actually love the Book of Mormon. And I know that when I read it, I'm a more patient person. I am a more loving mom. I cannot deny that. I just can't. And so then I really thought, okay, well, if I believe the Book of Mormon, then that means there's something about this church that's separate and different. And so what does this mean for me? Does this mean I'm going to stay? So now I had decided to leave. And so now I'm trying to decide if I'm going to stay. And so ultimately I decided that I'm going to stay. If I believe the Book of Mormon and I have that much faith in its power in my life, which I did, and I still do, then I want to stay. So I thought, okay, well, bishop number 3, here I come. Let's figure this out. And I went in so brave, Megan. I took all the hurt and I set it on the table, and I thought, I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to do it, even though it pissed me off that this man had control over my situation. It made me so angry. I thought, I'm going to do
understandable.
Right? I thought, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be brave, and I'm going to go in there. And I went in so ready and so excited to move forward. And he shut the door and he sat down and he looked at me, and I had FU written across my forehead. And I sat there pissed off. I kind of wanted to punch him in the throat. I'm not going to lie. And he looked at me and he didn't say anything. And again, I don't know. Does he know anything about my situation or does he not? I don't know. So we just sat there and stared at each other, me angry and him confused. And none of us really spoke. And I got up and I walked out. And that was the first meeting with bishop number 3. Didn't really speak.
No.
I set it up.
Exchange of words.
No, not really. I mean, there was the basic pleasantries. How are you? Which I don't even remember how I responded. I doubt I said I'm fine, because I wasn't. So there really wasn't a lot. So then I set up meeting number 2. Same thing. I don't know if he knows anything about my situation. Am I going to have to go in and rehash everything? I don't know. So I go in, same thing happens. And I go in brave. I'm excited. I'm ready. This is going to be the time. This time I'm going to get past whatever wall I'm hitting, and I'm going to tell him all the things so that I can move on and be considered worthy again in this church, which is kind of ridiculous that I was seeking for that so much, but whatever. I wanted to be a member of this church. And so I go in, and meeting number 2 happens the same way. And it happens again a third time. And at this point, I'm like, I'm clearly never going to get the okay from this bishop because he's looking for like a repentant soul. And that's not what he's seeing sitting in front of him. He's seeing someone who's very bitter and angry and looked nothing like a repentant soul, right? So I started praying and fasting because, like I said, my relationship with God and Jesus Christ were very, very firm and sound. And I didn't need the bishop to make that real. That just was real.
Let me ask you really quick. So you still at this point, though, didn't know how much the
Nope.
previous bishop had
I actually never found
shared
out. Nope. I still don't know. Nope. And so
all you knew was that this current bishop, number 3, knew that you were.
that I was arranging meetings. He never even reached out to me.
Did he know why you were arranging them?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I really don't know. Like when I say I don't know what that bishop knew, I mean I knew nothing. I was the one that arranged all 3 of these first meetings. And because I didn't know what he knew, my plan was to go in and be like, so here's my story, but I couldn't do it. And I didn't understand why I couldn't do it. I just could not bring myself to do it. So I started praying and fasting and asking God for help. And in the middle of all this, praying and fasting, I told him point blank, I'm not sure I can keep doing this. I've got this letter here asking to have my names removed from the records of the church. And I've got a lot of issues about the fact that this man has so much power and control over me. And I'm just not sure I can keep doing this. Like the hurt was so real. Yes, and I remember in one of those prayers, just pouring out my heart to God, being like, I don't know if I can go back into this office and look at him again because I don't know what's going on. I hate him. Really, I hate that I use such a strong word, but I hated him. And I hated Bishop number 2 for putting me in this situation so badly. And I hated that my outcome resulted solely on this one individual. It felt so wrong to me, and it still does. I'm not going to lie. So I just was so confused. And so I remember praying and being like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. I hurt so bad inside. And I remember God just telling me, Emily, I see the hurt. I understand how much you're hurting inside. And if you need to leave, I get it. I understand why you need to leave. And that was so validating because I was hurting so much, I would try and talk to people, humans, and I would explain like, this is why I'm hurting. And I would get met with one of 2 reactions. People who were members of the church would defend the church, which made me really angry. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't need you to defend this organization that's hurting me. I need you to see how much I'm hurting and understand that. And then if I spoke to people who weren't members of the church, to them, it was almost like a victory. Like, if I just pull hard enough, I can get you to leave. But that hurt too, because I was like, but this is an organization I've loved my whole life. I'm not sure I just want to leave. Yeah. So I was caught in between these 2 different groups of people who were like, I'm going to defend the church to the death, and I'm going to get you. I can get you to leave this organization. And everything just hurt. It was like, it didn't matter who I turned to, everything hurt. So to go to God and to have him understand and see my hurt was so loving. I mean, it was the first time it was like, oh my gosh, like maybe nobody else can see my hurt, but he can.
Thanks for joining me and for listening to part 1 with Emily Taylor. Subscribe and follow to be notified first when part 2 publishes in episode 50, where Emily continues to vulnerably share her story and how she found an answer to prayers in her own journal. Don't forget to enter my podcast giveaway. Simply leave a review on Apple Podcasts, screenshot it, and upload it to my Google Doc. The link to enter and to the Google Doc is in the show notes or the bio of my Instagram profile. Come join me in Hopeful Spaces, a Dallas Hope Charities component of Hopeful Discussions, which is sponsored by Mercedes-Benz Financial Services USA. Hopeful Spaces is a monthly parent, caregiver, and ally support group facilitated by Megan Skidmore Coaching. To join is free. Simply send an email to chc@dallashopecharities.org. Visit meganskidmorecoaching.com, where you can find this podcast, as well as additional free resources. Check the podcast show notes on any platform for links to sources cited. Follow me on Facebook or Instagram for more and to send me a DM. To help the podcast grow, please follow, rate, and review, as well as share it with a friend. Beyond the Shadow of Doubt is a proud member of the Dialogue Podcast Network, which is a part of the Dialogue Journal found at dialoguejournal.com/podcast network. Founder Eugene England was a Mormon writer, teacher, and scholar who wrote, "My faith encourages my curiosity and awe. It thrusts me out into relationship with all creation and encourages me to enter into dialogue. My hope is that this podcast is an extension of that vision." Thanks for being here. Until next time.